All right, everyone. Welcome to what is this now? 5? Episode 5 of the RPCast, otherwise known as the Ronzo and Pugcast. This week it's the Ronzo and Omega Cast. Sadly, my
Wow.
beautiful my beautiful sidekick slash side chick Lion isn't here today. So, Omega, what's this week's theme?
Events and community. And for those who don't know, I play Caitlin Wildheart,
Is that who
House
you are?
Wildheart, and all that. Yes, that's exactly who I am.
Oh, good. All right, so we got how many guests do we have today? We got 2 guests. We've got one Kelowna / Deborah, who I don't think I've ever met before. Say hi to everyone, Kelowna.
Hello, everybody.
And then we've got my internet girlfriend Valreth, who is I actually know quite well, who's a fellow guild leader in the Pack 53rd. Say hi, Val.
Hello.
Okay, I'm being told to call you Deb Bra. Okay, we're good. So thanks for joining us this week, everyone. Let's just jump right in. So this week it's all about community. It's all about events. Guild Wars is I want to say, to put it gently, colorful community. It's some good, some bad. I mean, like any roleplay community, really. So what is your guys' background when it comes to Deborah? Start us off. What's your background when it comes to community events and all that?
I want to say the first event that I did was almost 3 years ago for Nebo Terrace underneath one of the ministers there. Then I ran events once a month, both for Nebo, also for the guild I'm currently in, House Corvidae, also for Civic, and for a little while some independent events. Like one of the last ones that was collaborative was Champions of Kryta. Yeah, Champions of Kryta, and that was held out in Kessex Hill, and then again in Gendaran Fields with Emerus and Emerus.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. What about you, Val? What's your background? Do you have any? Did you just wander onto set for this recording? Is that how you got in?
Pretty much. No, my event planning started back in beta and at launch when I was in the Guild Templars of Arcane, and I would organize different priority artifact related events, random patrols, and it's kind of carried over into the Pact 53rd, and so we've been continued to do the patrols, and we try and do missions that are not only geared towards specific branches of the pact, but we also do pact-wide events. I've also helped out with some smaller community-wide events. I've done the food and drink menu for the Wild Heart Casino. I've also helped out during the Mordrum invasion. We ran a few open world patrols for that, and a bunch of other events. Most recently was the memorial service in Queensdale. I helped plan, and I ended up running that one as well. There's probably quite a few more that are slipping my mind at the moment, but those are pretty much it.
There you go. Well, it's good to have you both here. Omega, you want to lead us into the first actual question that we have written down?
Sure. Hold on. What is your process for creating an event, like brainstorming, planning, and organizing?
My answer is going to likely drive a couple of my co-leaders crazy for both guilds, but my process is pretty much
fucking make everyone salty. Fuck them.
I'll NCly mention an idea to people around about what's on my mind, and if they have no interest whatsoever, I'm not writing up any damn thing. If there's a little interest, I'll flesh out a rough outline, go back and forth to refine it, and then start setting up. If there's high interest, that's when I break out the Google document and start doing details, checklists, and that snappy Virgo situation.
How about you, Val?
I have kind of a lengthy process, but it has worked for me numerous times. depending on the event, sometimes I'll mention it icily first. Most of the time I don't. I usually end up coming up with an idea, and I'm pretty scatterbrained. So then I have to do a whole other step of organizing my thoughts. Then I do a bunch of research, looking on the wikis. I, kind of decide if my event's going to be more combative or scholarly, cloak and daggers, or a little bit of everything. Then I kind of take a look and does it even have any relevancy for the group that I'm trying to do it with? And if it doesn't, then sometimes I'll try and figure out a way that it can. Otherwise, I kind of ditch the idea. But I look for the way to make connections with the lore. Does my story actually fit with the lore? What kind of things can I pull from the lore and add to the story to make it deeper? Most importantly, I come up with backup plans. I make sure my story is still flexible while still being able to reach the end goal no matter what happens during the event.
Yeah, because half of it is DMing as well, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
as well.
Yeah, I plan out like all of my...
The golden rule in
plan out-
DMing is that anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Pretty much. I'll plan out like all the important characters that I need for my story. If they're going to be NPCs or other players, DMs. Then I kind of plan out how long I want the event to last. If it's going to be a one-time deal, weekly, or like a month, like a overarching plot that's going to take a longer amount of time. And then I'll talk to my guild's officers, and I'll find out, when to hold the event. If there's another plot going on, I don't want to, bombard the guild with all these storylines and everybody get confused. And if there's anyone interested in playing one of the roles that I might need. And then, of course, I come up with the document with all the information for my DM so that everybody's on the same page. Then I'll start making like the fun little graphics and stuff to put on the forums and the GW2 RP site and calendar. If it's an open event, lately it's been all guild events only though. And then like a day or two before the event, I contact all my people, make sure that everything is still okay to go. And then after the event, I write up a little summary for our site so that our members stay in the loop.
Do you also show up an hour beforehand to set things up?
Sometimes 2.
Yeah.
What a fucking nerd! Oh my god.
I am.
I'm just kidding. That's why I liked having you as an officer so much because I'm going to answer this question because I have very important opinions because my opinions are the only ones that really matter anyway. My process for making an event is I just kind of throw rocks at Val and say, Val, make my event for me. Do this, and that's how I do it.
Pretty much.
That's why I'm glad you're so good at it.
Bouncing off of like Val's setup, it pretty much is how most events go. Like you kind of just brainstorm and just kind of form it up. But what I've found easier to do is kind of just like ask around for ideas. But like, because the events I usually host are more community based, or like, oh, I just kind of open it up to everyone to just kind of jump on in. Like, say if I was going to do a spar event, I'd be like, okay, it's going to be a spar. And I just open up a Google Doc, I give it a title, whatever, Queensdale Fight Night or something. From there, I basically just write in words, picture, description, and like just put them in rows, like almost as if I'm setting up a skeleton format for it, just so I can easily just fill them out after. It's like, okay, after I put those out, I can put, okay, here's the description, put OOC, but like where, when, taxis, shards, if we need any DMs, the signups, maybe there's going to be some vendors, and you kind of just fill it out in like that way. And from there, you can slowly get more detailed. You can take screenshots in game and then put them in there. And eventually, you can do the final cleanup in like the Guild Wars 2 RP engine and just kind of flesh it all out there. Yeah, that's pretty much how I do it. It's just kind of fill it out, fill in the blank style.
Man, you guys, that must be exhausting for you guys.
I have a whole template, and I actually copy and pasted my template onto our guild website. So like people that may be interested in hosting events in the future but aren't exactly sure how to go about it, they have at least a rough outline of what is involved.
We had
Yeah,
one for HC as well. Unfortunately, not many people seem to take advantage of it. They just sort of wing off the fly, and it's like, okay, guys, this is really not helpful
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's what
I think
that's
all
what people
guilds have
do.
that issue though. We have that problem too.
yeah. I
Right?
should
We
probably
have a
get mine
guild
out.
site. I'm sure we have a guild site somewhere, right, Val?
That would be
I think
the
it's
sound of
somewhere there.
me bashing my head against the keyboard.
Oh, I'm well accustomed to that sound. All
Yeah, I
right,
should probably
so
post mine too. But
so real talk, real talk, real talk. When
no.
it comes to handling feedback and stuff, because if you're a host or you're a guest and you have to either take or give feedback, criticism, or what have you, what? How do you take it? What's the line between being decent criticism, constructive criticism, or just being a dick and being, oh, this event is garbage? What do you guys think? Starting with Deborah.
It actually, like you said, it depends on the feedback. The positive feedback that doesn't really express the specific aspect of the event that was enjoyed, it'll get a polite reply of thanks, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. For the constructive positive feedback, I make some tea and I wait an hour before I type anything because that time space is needed for an emotional barrier. Because for the negative feedback, I may not even touch that reply until the next day just to give my feelings a chance to settle if it's like instant angry. Because as we've said, this is a lot of work. And then to have someone step in later and go, like, kind of piss all over it, it makes you feel very like irritated. Events, they're huge amounts of work for the organization, planning, researching, as you just heard. And we just don't like the effort griped at. And that doesn't mean that instant response should be hostile. It's just like if you're running around with a gun in your pocket, you use words first and then you go for your holster. Um, I also, for everyone listening, I'm
Guns.
begging you, please consider what you before you type. Before you leave an itemized list of criticisms, ask yourself, why am I about to post this comment? Will this comment be better in a private message or a public one? What are you hoping to change? Or maybe, what can I offer myself and my time this way that the host did to enact those kinds of changes that I want to see? Because people sometimes see requests to leave feedback as carte blanche to really tear into hosts. And this can leave a very, very sour note for people who host events. And it has definitely led to some very talented people in the past swearing off holding any more parties or events in the future that don't fall into that safe range. So
Hmm.
many thanks for the hostings out there, but often a generic thank you. I had fun. Looking forward to the next one. They're really great. But again, those itemized criticisms, those they can leave things unbalanced because without an indication of what specifically was liked and enjoyed, it's hard to plan future events along the same aspects for people.
I like that point because I've seen it in the past though, where I'll go, okay, here's what I love the event. Here's everything that I just thought you might need to work on with people. I won't go into names. Like this you could have done this a little better. Do this next time. Maybe this time clear this part up a bit. But other than that, everything was great. And you know, you sometimes when you give kind of honest feedback like that, even if it's as polite as that, people will jump down your throat for giving you that kind of feedback. So I definitely think you have to, when you ask for feedback, you definitely need to prepare your jimmies to be rustled a little bit so your butt doesn't get too salty.
And one thing is wording can be a lot of like the difference of what you would be saying, because maybe one person may see it as, oh, I'm just giving my criticism. Here are some examples, but maybe your wording may come off as a little more aggressive, or maybe just the person interpreting it may just see it as just outright insults. But that's more of just a different topic that we will address later. But um, it's how Kelowna said, it's you have to be able to give your criticism, but it would help if you gave us like the pros and cons. Tell us what we did good, what we can improve on. Maybe you wanted more musicians into an event, or something went wrong and you wanted it to be addressed. Giving us examples and going into detail of what you know bothered you, that helps so much.
Yeah, like totally going off of that, you have to really pay attention to, people don't realize that tone does not come across in text very well at all. And as far as like taking criticism, the main thing that you have to ask yourself is what this person saying, is it constructive? Do they actually have, or are they just kind of like bitching and moaning? Um, do they give a possible solution? Are they the only one that had the issue, or did others have it too? Is it just a minor issue, like they prefer roles over honor system, or is it like a major issue that caused a huge backlash? There's a lot of things to take into account, but like Colota said, you have to, both sides, whether you're giving or receiving criticism, you have to take the time to read and process what is being said before you type it out and submit it. Because too many people, they type out the first thing that pops into their head, and then they just hit submit without looking it over or anything else. But a lot of times, if you took the time to look it over, then you would be like, okay, this is legitimate. This is not, this is actually constructive. This is just me being, kind of a whiny bitch, whatever. So yeah, it definitely helps to read everything, and I cannot, and that goes for anything. The importance of reading, I cannot stress enough.
Oh, I hate reading though. I barely even know how to read.
What else is new?
Nothing really. I mean, that's fair. There's communication is like the one of the most important parts, and as like my job as a guild leader has never really been to do like events. I'm terrible at events. Val could tell you first off, if I have fucking anxiety attacks whenever I have to run anything. I'm there just to crack the whip and tell people to knock shit off. But even I could tell you that communication is like the most vital part about anything, and people need to at least skim over things or ask questions to the people. But like even at a certain point, they might drive them nuts. But that's just me. I guess I'm crazy.
And another thing I think that's worth noting is if you're going to be hosting a community event, be expecting some sort of criticism, whether it be good or bad. You opened it up to everyone, and I mean, it usually ends up being very helpful for the most part. Like for me, I know I haven't really gotten any negativity yet. I've gotten maybe a few occasional, oh, that was good, but they didn't really give me any details. Like I would love to have someone tell me, oh, it was good, but it could have been great. Tell me what else can I do? Criticism can go a long way for events.
Yeah. So speaking of which, speaking of communication, actually, that kind of brings us into the next topic. Because this is one question, I'm probably going to phase it into two. When it comes to like, let's say, when you're running an event, and do you ever get frustrated when the people running the event like try to push it, or not running the event, taking part in the event, try to push it a certain way that might not been what your original intention was? Anyone at all?
Yeah. If the addition is adding kind of positively to the event, or people present seem to be getting into it, like they send whispers saying, "Oh, this is so neat, this is so cool," or you're reading the NC reactions to it, and they seem to be responding well. Roll with it. I'll admit, the first couple of events that I've ever hosted on the server, there was one where somebody jumped in and they did something really unplanned, and it was really stressful because I didn't know about it, but apparently other people had agreed to just roll with it without informing me. So it kind of created a divergence because I decided to ignore everything that was happening over to that one side and just kept RPing as if it wasn't happening. But yeah, over the years, I've learned to chillax and just kind of take the mantle of the other words that RP stands for, which is roll with the punches. But if a group is
But it
seriously
stood for
seeking to
Ronzo
be
and Pug Monkey.
if a group's really looking to be disruptive to the point where they're trolling, and if you whisper them and kind of request, "Hey, could you knock that off?" and they're still being hostile or doing it, it's time to block people and move on.
Yeah. See, when that's a guild event, that's when people start getting the boot. When it's a community event, that's when people stop getting invited. When stuff like that happens. Let me see. What do you think, Val? And then Omega.
I pretty much agree with Deborah. And it also depends on the event and a bunch of other factors. Pretty much, like, for me, I always make sure my events have a lot of flexibility so that I'm ready for anything. Like if the participants, decide to toss something in. But if it's like a huge plot that I've been working on for a long time and like a random group comes along and interferes without whispering me and asking me, then yeah, I might be a little miffed. Just because of how much planning goes into it. Like there's a plot I'm working on right now that I've been working on for at least a month, maybe a little bit more. So like if somebody came in and just like, you know, raffle stomped all over it, I'd be kind of pissed. But if it's another, some of the other events that I make are a bit more open. So if somebody like whispered me to spontaneously ask to join, which this has happened before, we'd be on patrol and somebody is like, hey, I would really like to join, is it okay? I'll be like, yeah, sure. This is I'll give them like a brief rundown of like what they should be seeing and let them know of like anything else that's important. And then like if there's a rare instance where someone tries to turn a large event into their own personal mission, then I got to start whispering them and the guild officers and be like, look, this is for the whole guild, not just for you. But yeah, pretty much that's it in a nutshell.
I mean, it's
one thing that actually, that question's probably something that I've had to deal with quite a bit recently, because I've recently added the whole OOC disclaimer to my events, and I've recently remade it to better fit the events, to basically make it so people can interact with the event, so it's not permanently locked. For instance, for let's say my musical event, I basically had vendors, people were playing music, and people didn't really sign up right away. So instead of just like kind of jumping in and just kind of going onto the stage, since we had a format where people were going in order, they would whisper me, is like, hey, I didn't get a chance to sign up, can I still join in? And even though it's something minor, they were still going ahead and asking, hey, can I sign up right now, can I jump into the line as well? Or say I was having maybe a party, someone may wanted to, let's say, start a fight. Okay, well, that would easily derail the party, and let's say it was just so it can be a social hour or whatever. If it was going to be a contained fight, then yeah, I can see it being fine. And what's it called? Oh god, I lost it. Let's say
oh no, this new host just can't fucking cut it.
get out of here. It's my show now.
No way.
It's my ranting hour.
Finish your thought, sir.
Just go for it. God damn it, I
Okay.
lost it. Go.
All right. Well, I guess I'll keep. I mean, I don't think like people doing things unexpectedly in an event. I think I guess I don't have a whole lot of room to talk because I don't run a lot of events. But the way I like to have them run for me, Val, is wide open thing. Like we do a lot in the Pack 53rd Open, kind of very flexible things because I don't want to have to work hand in hand to write down like the idea of a plot and how it works and what the outcome is because you have so many different people and some people play characters that are wildly difficult to predict and hard to know what they're going to do. So like I like that I've run one or two and I've always liked to just kind of here's everything, here's all the set pieces, and if everything burns that isn't supposed to burn, well fuck it, I'll have to write something else. But that's me. Don't all answer once.
It's just like sometimes things go really well. Sometimes the additions are really great. And sometimes the additions are like, I could have had a better time if I
Yeah.
shoved the blender up someplace. But there.
Yeah, I think it is a little unrealistic to go hand in hand with everybody who does everything. I mean, especially in bigger events, it's just kind of it's like DMing. You have to just roll with it. Like DMing like a D&D campaign where your party is just a bunch of chuckle fucks who are trying to steal everything, and they're rolling to check the waitress for traps, and things just aren't going your way. It's fucking
She's
just
a trap.
figure out how to just figure out how to deal. That's
It
the best
kind
way.
of goes back to my whole have a backup plan.
Yeah,
God, yes.
like that's yeah. I mean that's probably the best way to do it. You can never really be too prepared when it comes to this kind of shit.
Yeah, and it's pretty much just giving the OOC heads up, whether it be right before or at least maybe a few days beforehand. That helps so much because sometimes you'd be asking, like for me, whenever I host events, I usually invite guild leaders and stuff like that just so I can get them to like inform their people and set it up on their calendars. And then to have like a sudden attack or something, it's just like, oh, I told them it's going to be a social event, suddenly it's like War of the Worlds over here.
Okay.
All right, let's move this along because we've more or less beat this to death. So this is a fun question, and I'm going to answer this first because my opinions are more important than
Of course.
anyone.
Oh.
Shut up. So let's talk because we've all played Guild Wars, but I'm gonna even bring this even further out because this is kind of a general thing for me. In any game that you've played role played on, is there any place particular like part on the map, the environment in which you could go openly as a community without having to be on a certain quest or lock into a certain area? Um, any particular part of any map in any game that you would like to see an event on that you haven't seen one on? Because for me, I like seeing stuff in like Ore and in the Silver Wastes and now in all the new fucking Tangled Heart of Thorns shit that like all just fighting like military, anything outside of the cities really, but like more of like where all the fighting's taking place against the Elder Dragons, particularly if we're just talking about Guild Wars. That's what it is for me. Omega, why don't you lead this one?
Oh man. Um, in terms of locations, sometimes I try and find places just that look beautiful. And it's just like I really want to host an event there just to enjoy the scenery, but it's really difficult to do so just because it may just be a stagnant area with nothing really going on. Like I don't know if you guys have gone to the like the waterfall places and all that. Those are some really nice places, but it's just there's not really a way to make an event there. I would like to, but it's you can't really do it. It's kind of hard.
There is a freaking checklist, probably as long as my arm, of places in the game where I would love to see either RP return to or have some RP head out there.
What are some that are on your list? I'm curious.
Van Yearstead out in, I believe it's either Timberline or Lorner's Pass. It's got a waypoint right next to it. It's just a little Norn um, stead, and it's really gorgeous. Gutra's Secret is another one for Order of Whispers people. I know there's a guild that has used it in the past and even done a public event for other Order of Whispers characters. It's really kind of cool. Most of the havens. Radisson needs some more love out there. Butcher's Block, Nolan, and Ruins of Ren. Those are some places. Ruins of Ren is another one that I really wanted to see some people at because it is near a city. It's very priory historic based, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody out there really. Um, there's a little camp with tents and everything over by Stoneguard Gate. The leftovers from when Scarlet attacked Lion's Arch, they have the in Gandharm Fields, they have the tents in areas where the refugees used to be. Seraph's Landing used to have a lot of stuff, but then apparently that all died off. Soren Dra, Mrat Buru, those are two areas inside of Metrica Province, and Desired Autumn as well. Those were really, really nice. And even the Grey Hoof camp down inside of Kessex Hill, gorgeous, gorgeous areas. They just don't have as many people doing things there. And they're not hostile areas, which is kind of confusing as well, of why there's nothing over there.
Just like Triskel, like I know there's a lot of like the meta events where it's kind of like people just kind of dying and the whole poison and like the water being all bad. but there's still a lot of RP potential there. Like we can easily go back and revisit the location and kind of almost make it like a little RP hotspot for a week. Just get people to go and just interact with what's going on there.
Yeah, because Trisco Quay has a 3-story inn there. It's huge and great.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of role playing in military guild. Is just you can change the spot in which you could just come up with a reason. Oh, we're stationed here now because the Pack 53rd was stationed. Like I've mentioned this before, Silver Waste. Then Silver Waste, and we found a reason to be in Queensdale, and then Fort Trinity for a while, just all over. And it opens up all kinds of opportunities to do events all over the place. With what's surrounding it, what's nearby. I think we did something with the Shadow Behemoth something when we were in Queensdale. I don't remember, but there's a lot of good stuff that you get when you're role playing outside of the city like limits. I remember in the Old Republic, people used to glitch over walls to get to either Republic only or Sith only places to have like events and stuff like that. It really worked out well.
Yeah, like back when I was in Templars of Arcane, we would have bases all over. We moved like once a month. At one point, we were actually at the jumping puzzle in Blaze Ridge Steps. We loved jumping puzzles because there was like very few mobs and they were kind of fun and like secretive to kind of get to. But with the Pack 53rd, we've kind of always done a lot of events throughout the world. So there's really not many places on my checklist. A lot of them, it's more like bringing more events back to places that I've already been. A lot of them, Deborah already mentioned. They're just really really good places. I would also like to see some more in Caledon or Caledon, however you pronounce the giant forest for the Sylvari. I'm
Kashyyyk.
horrible at. I'm
Kashyyyk.
horrible
It's pronounced
at.
Kashyyyk. The Wookiees live there.
I'm horrible at pronouncing stuff. And then there's the huge Norn moot place in Keystyard in Timberland Falls. It's right at the upper northwest corner, right when you get into the region. And it's huge. There's kegs everywhere, and there's music, and there's friggin' Skrit running around. It's just everybody's there, and it's still kind of like away, and it's warmer, so there's snow like 20 feet from you, but there's grass. But I would actually, more than locations, I would actually like to see more events from other races. Yeah.
God, yes, please, yes.
I want to see...
Which kind of leads us into the next question.
Hey, I'm not there yet. You go as fast as I go, goddammit. I want to see more people role-playing in the throne room saying they're trying to kidnap the queen. I think that's an absolute must because not only will it be entertaining to me, it'll let us know who to blatantly ignore, and it's very healthy for the community. All right, so I guess now, since Val kind of kicked the door open on this one, I'll move on. Do you believe human events are the most common events, Deborah?
I really do. A part of the reason I think that they're the most common is because at the moment, human events have the most stuff for living stories written about them by the developers. There was literally every chance, in my opinion, for many of the world and living story events to be in other cities. And that was a choice made by some heavily overworked dev teams. But sadly, it also put into place the idea that humanity is kind of where it's at. That first Winter's Day event that Tix Gate had, the first Winter's Day event anyway, the Tix had, there were gates in all of the cities equally. And then the last two have only been in DR. And I know that they said in Sealy Tix did it because humans spent more money, but I also think it's because the dev teams were overworked, so they didn't have the chance to, Tixify the entire all the races' cities.
I don't think the races bought enough gems. If you ask me, I don't think they bought enough gems. The humans have the most gems. Makes
didn't hit the quota.
It was very sad to me because the Mad King still happens all over, but the focus there is still in LA, and it's LA is, yeah, you're going to say it's kind of a mixed community, but it is still a human heavy city. And I say that because most of the captain's council is predominantly human.
I mean, I would agree. I mean, we are talking mostly about like role play events and such, I believe. I mean, I don't know. It's either way, it doesn't really matter. But like, I see mostly human events. I mean, also because I do mostly human role play and I don't go around like stuff with Sylvari and stuff like that. But like in this game particularly, where race is more of a thing than it is in other games, maybe like the Old Republic or um, well, the Republic is the only one I can really think of offhand that's like that. You get mostly humans that I can see, and like a lot of the Sylvari roleplay and stuff like that is off on its own. Like they have their own courtier guilds and such. That's what do you think, Val?
Um, Pretty much the same. I do a lot of lurking on the roleplay website, and most of the events that I see are human. I see a few Norn, like the weekly or monthly Norn moot that goes on, um, and sometimes I'll see like the Asuran like invention thing going on. Those are really cool. But yeah, definitely there's the human events dominate the RP, and uh, if I knew more about Char lore and could really get into the race more, I'd probably think about setting up some events. But I think people should that are more familiar with the lore should make some more events for us to all go to. Even if they're just like little stuff, like do something for Meattoberfest or something.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember I did a small event at Meetoberfest where when a character was getting married and my character brought him there for his he brought him to Meetoberfest for his bachelor party and still wound up getting a stripper all the way out there somehow. Ronzo's the best character ever written. Omega, you've been quiet. I know you want to talk. It's kind of what you do. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I pretty much agree with everyone. It's all human at this point. But one thing I've noticed is for Sylvari, they are starting to get more just because people are starting to get more interest in the whole courtier and all that, and they're trying to push for more events. But even then, it's kind of difficult to do so just because of the living story kind of just sitting there right now, and we don't really know what's going on currently.
Fair.
Yeah, I think the Sylvari RP um just before and right when Heart of Thorns hit was really interesting because I remember talking to a couple Sylvari players and they're like, I wonder how I'm going to have my character react to this and what's going to happen and how other people are going to interact with my character.
I know a couple of Sylvari players and one that was a member of Sylvari Guild. And right before Heart of Thorns came out, there seemed to be a drop in the number of Sylvaris being played. And then after it came out, people just they commented about how hostile other RPers suddenly turned to their Sylvari. Like we had a former member in the guild who had a Sylvari, and they came back and they commented of how they were walking through Evanhawk and their character in CV got jumped, and it was like, whoa, what? And that wasn't even a day after Heart of Thorns released officially, and it was like, oh wow, that's just kind of
Build a wall.
not cool.
Build a wall is right, but I think like what you kind. I actually think that's pretty all right. Like you would kind of maybe not so quickly because I mean people had probably been waiting since the Heart of Thorns trailer released at the end of that One Living Story quest where people were waiting and knew about it. Maybe didn't give enough time once the expansion actually hit to let it realistically set in.
Yeah.
But I still think barring that, which like that doesn't even really bother me that much because fuck it. I mean, we all know it's a thing, and I mean it was a thing like Icelian had been for a questionable amount of time. But I think that's fine. I think you know as long as it's racism on an IC level is fine if it's you know within reason, I guess. But I think that's particularly within reason.
Yeah, and I remember in the early days for the RP community, like the whole char and human thing, It was great interaction, but there was a lot of OOC bleeding into it, and I feel like that really pushed away the Char roleplay. And I think at this current point in time, I think we could maybe revisit that, especially since of the whole like race relations and the whole banding together with Pact.
Mm.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, the whole Sylvari storyline kind of really affected our guild in particular, with us being packed, and with some of the in-game events, uh, forcing you, well, not forcing, but like having you, use this gadget to figure out who's still loyal, who isn't. And I mean, I thought it was really interesting. And and watching a couple of our members go through that struggle. I mean, we had a couple members that role played it out very well, and it made you really want to dig deeper into those Sylvari lore, and you felt that connection with that other player.
It was a lot of fun. The house I'm in right now, we were kind of divided in our allies, and these are people we've been allied with for like more than a year or so. Where the house heads even were split in Sealy about, because like my character, Deborah, she's been betrayed in the past under Seraph, and so she does not deal with betrayal very well. And she's hearing everyone say, "Oh no, we need to give them a chance. We need to give them a chance." She's like, "No, no, we need to send them away. We need to send them away now, not because I hate them, but because we're going to have half of our people sitting there looking over their shoulders. There's going to be disruptions. There's going to be an undermining of order. It can go bad,
Yeah, you got to
really
build that
bad."
wall. Got to build that wall.
Pretty much.
Though I will say that it also caused a lot of OOC drama in our guild at one point too.
Did it?
Mm.
Yes, because with my character being a commander, and this kind of goes into balancing guild leader, in game versus out of game. It's really tough for being a military organization, because military, at least for America, I mean, it's pretty spelled out. If you do this, this happens. You do this, this happens. But in game, it's like we have to balance. Okay, what's reasonable to ask the player to do, versus what's reasonable lore wise. It's like we can't necessarily court martial somebody, or like if someone's character is causing trouble, but we have no issue with the person, the player, then it's like, okay, well, we would discuss with them different options as to how to go about the situation. And with the Sylvari, it caused issues too, because a couple of them, it was like, okay, they're struggling with this, we'll detain them, um, but they're still, or they can work as long as they have two escorts with them. If they're prior, they have to have like an escort or whatever. um, but then some people took that on an OOC level, as they're like, oh, you're not doing this right. And it's like, okay, well, we have to find that balance.
Yeah, I mean,
The
especially,
Sylvari thing caused some issues. It wasn't too bad though.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it comes down to when you role play a character, you have to be able to always accept consequences when for whatever your character does, whether it's something that they did intentionally, like stealing something and they get arrested, or something that they have no control over, like Mordermoth having control over Sylvari. You have to be able to role play with that weakness, that consequence, and you can't get mad when it comes up, because it's just part of the world that you chose to make your character, and it's part of the character you chose to make. You can't avoid it. That's you can't be that special snowflake who doesn't you know have that going on. And like, I thought that was one of the best parts about just role playing at that time in general. And there was a little bit of OC drama, mostly because people wanted to know wanted their characters to know what they knew. And I think that's what led to most of the headaches with it. And it kind of went away, but just like it went away pretty quickly, actually, if I recall. But like that, I just remember at that point in time just being like really excited to keep doing it, but super butt rumbled that people were doing it, like a couple people were doing it wrong. I had to crack whip.
Yeah, it's very hard if you're doing guild leader officer or anything like that because someone's like, well, they're just not behaving right. Why don't you kick them? And it's like, dude, no, they're also players. They're trying to play the game. They're trying
Yeah,
to enjoy it. We need to take some moderated steps. You just can't go around kicking everybody you don't like or you don't agree with. Otherwise, you have a very, very empty guild real fast.
yeah, like absolutely. Um, let me see. Do you have anything to add, Omega, before we move on?
Not really. That pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go then. And then this is something that I could go on for fucking days about because I've had run-ins with some stuff like this in the past. But I'll let you guys answer first before I let you know what your opinion should be. When you do a role play event, whether it's just with your guild or with the whole community, doesn't matter. Should you have a full disclosure of what's going to happen in an OOC thread? Should you let the people know what their characters are about to be exposed to, like fully, like what the whole plan is and what? Because at a point you could argue that it's to so they know what direction to go in. Another point is it takes the immersion out. It takes the fun out of not knowing what's going to happen or what's planned. What do you think, Val?
Um, well, for plot wise, I will not reveal anything about a plot. I'll give them like an intro to work with. As far as like some of the disclosure stuff, I'm on the fence because I've seen it from all perspectives. I've played a villain character. I've been a participant and I've run events. Um, that being said, I'm all for vague disclaimers. I keep it as like, please no unplanned events, or I do nothing is planned, but it's open to having something happen. Just make sure you ask me first. That way I'm aware and I can roll with it. And that way, if my guild starts freaking out, I can be like, no, guys, it's cool. It's okay. It's not a troll. Um, or I can be like, hey, yeah, something's gonna happen sometime during the event or after the event, but I don't give any specifics. Um, but like as a villain, I want to be able to know if it's okay for me to crash an RP. I want to cause IC drama, and not OOC drama. And so like if I do crash an RP, I want to know my limits. So I find out who the host is and I ask before I do anything. It's a balance of immersion and common courtesy. Don't side rail an RP unless you ask the host first. There's a lot of, like we've stated earlier in the RPcast, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. And if somebody completely derails it without asking, then it's going to discourage people that might want to plan events in the future. And so then it's just like the same people planning events over and over again, and it stagnates the community and causes unnecessary drama.
Yeah. Um, Fully, completely agree. As for the OOC disclosure, I'm with Val. I'm on the fence on this one because personally, I think it's at the discretion of the host because there's our peers who absolutely refuse to do anything that could possibly hint at metagaming, and an OOC warning could be deemed as just that to them, even if it's really well intentioned. Then there's our peers who will not go near a plot without an outline checklist of what to expect. Um, I think a question to ask is, what would the warning really do? I know some of us say it'll give us time to prepare the perfect character for the situation, and I'm wondering why. I'm not being funny. I am actually curious because a character that's more of a coward than a fighter being present, well, the coward might flee. They could hide in a corner or they run off and cling to the first person who looks big and tough to save them. And to me, that's RP right there. Not logging and later saying that they weren't on the right character. Every character to me is the right character. Is how we use them in the situation that defines us as our peers. A priest is there instead of a warrior. Break out the hosannas and start healing the wounded. Merchants there when the bomb blows or the bullets start. Offer gold for protection from the shooters, or maybe plan to roam back later and charge double goods or donate to promote business. A situation doesn't become limited just because the character that's being played at that moment isn't the one we wanted.
I'm pretty split on the fence as well on this one, because there's several times where it's like it would be nice to have that surprise. It'd be great. And there's other times where it's like, okay, I'm pressed for time. I already put some time away for this event. It's gonna end at 8. Perfect. But then there's times where it's like, oh, surprise plot twist, and now it's going on for another 2-3 hours, and it's just like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. Or maybe, like how you said, bullets start flying everywhere, and you're like, oh, I needed to run in cover just because this character's like that. Where instead, if you knew, you would have preferred to go on your warrior because you would have loved to have done some combat RP instead of fleeing.
But it's still RP, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You still get
okay, so I mean, I'm very strongly towards the opinion that you should never know what it is you're going into. I think the idea of full disclosure going into an event is just stupid. I think it's silly. I've known a few people, and obviously I won't name any names, who got upset during particular events where a character had died, and they were upset that they didn't know about it ahead of time. And I think that takes the fun out of the storytelling. I think it takes a lot of the effect and the purpose out of the storytelling, knowing what's going into it. It's like watching Game of Thrones and watching X get murdered on screen when you didn't know it was coming unless you read the books. Hint, hint. But I think really, I just think the concept of knowing what you're going to be doing as a role play character, that's stupid. That's basically, I wouldn't call it metagaming because you might not build a response like completely react to it, and if you do, then that's metagaming. But even then, just you should know. You should never know.
Good or
And
bad,
I
it's
think
still
that's
metagaming. It's like when people orient towards only their own tags at events as opposed to just seeing somebody interesting and saying, hey, that looks like somebody fun. Let me go talk to them. Like my guild knows I'll abandon them at an event.
Yeah, for real. Like if you go in and you want to know what's going on, or you want this particular thing to happen, well then go find some, like, when it comes to me, I just say no. Too bad. We're not telling you anything that's going on. The most I will tell you, and I think the only thing you should know going into an event, guild community, otherwise, should I be prepared for my character to spend the next couple weeks injured as fuck? That's the only thing. Like that's the only thing I want to know. Like I'm not gonna, like literally just so I can look at it and go, well, do I need to do another? Is there another event that my character cannot be injured for?
Yeah, like for us for when I plan stuff for the guild, I always make sure I put it on the calendar. So we've got little tags on there, and so I'll in the description. And the only thing that our guild members know going in, before we do like a mission briefing type of thing, is they have a setting, like something vague happened in such and such location, and we're being sent to investigate or whatever. It's always really vague, and then the tag is usually either okay if combat is being involved or combat's not involved, or if it's like a celebration or whatever else. Like they're one word tags that we add to our events, so like people can plan. Okay, well, I don't really know what this plot is about, but I should be prepared for combat. Okay, so then like maybe it would draw more attention for our vigil members than necessarily our priory members. So like it gives people enough information to know which character to appear on, but without revealing any of the plot.
Like, even then, I guess for some guilds it might not matter, but like if your character would be there, then your character would be there. It shouldn't matter whether or not OOC, like whether or not your character's going to get in a fight or not, because like even I guess I like to go like all in on the sense that even if I know anything, well, fuck it, I shouldn't. So I'm not going to make any decisions based off of it.
I think it's a nice mental exercise for people who are used to RPing one certain way. They get into a situation and it's completely different than they expected, and they can maybe learn different things about their characters that they didn't know before, just based on the character's NC reaction to the situation.
Yeah. And one argument that I've seen for some time over that, it was like you're going to a movie theater and you're going to go watch Iron Man, and suddenly you see Batman on the screen and you're like, oh, I wanted to see Iron Man. And yeah, you're still going to get, a superhero movie, but it's not the one that you expected. And whether you decide to stay and watch it is entirely up to you and how you want to see it. And oh, and before I forget, we actually had a poll set up for some of these questions, like the OOC warnings. Bear in mind, these polls, they do have an IP block to prevent multi-voting, but you can reset your router to vote twice. So just keep that in mind when I read off the results. Let me look at it real quick.
Okay.
We had 4 different vote options. The first one was the no disclaimer, the full surprises, and it's open to plot twists. That got 20 votes. The second one was warning that it's social only, so saying there's no attacks allowed whatsoever, no, sudden derails. That's 13 votes. And the third one is host informs before events of an attack. So say there was a plot twist to happen, the host would put it on the thread, and that one got 21. And the fourth one is host leaves it open for people's choice, which is basically it's open to, for someone to just show up and start shooting everyone. That got 6 votes. And it seems like the crowd's pretty split on either no disclaimer with a full surprise and the host informs people. And an idea that I've been coming up with to try and work with that is to set up a disclaimer saying, okay, this is the general setup of the event. If you want to know of a potential surprise, I'm going to leave it in a spoiler tag. So if something does happen, you can just click it and it's up to you if you want to know or not. So it gives the people the choice of, it being a surprise or not. I think that would be a good setup, just to give people the option.
Oh, well,
That could
I
work.
didn't know there was a poll. I'm quite surprised. Nobody tells me nothing.
Well,
Or
maybe
else
if
I don't
you
pay.
read.
Or maybe
You
if I
can't
didn't
read.
have a job. Well, yeah, I already told you I didn't know how to read. All right, well, let's keep this chugging along because we're doing pretty good on time. But I actually had a question because Val was talking about combat and we were talking about whatever combat was mentioned. So when it comes to like running an event, do you guys do you do roles? Do you do? I always preferred honor system, but do you do roles? Do you do honor system? I mean, we could do an entire podcast on role play combat, so we won't spend too much time on this. But like a role system, do you make your own like role system with like stat sheets and everything? What? How do you guys usually handle that?
For me, it really depends on the event and how many people are there. Um, so most of the time, and like for me, I've tried to play Dungeons and Dragons and like tabletop games. I just can't get into it, and like I find the combat system really really overly complicated, and so it's like we're in a video game. You don't want to have it drag on for hours on end. So so I usually end up just doing real. If I do rolls, it's real basic. It's usually like a 1 to 100 scale, and like 1 to 25 is one thing, and then 26 to 50 is another, 51 to 75, and so on. You know, and then I always do like higher number is like more accurate, like you hit harder. Um, and then other, but most if it's just like a really tiny event where it really doesn't matter, I'll do like the honor system and people can just go ham. Like if we're just wanting something quick and easy and fun, I just let people do whatever. I really don't care. But like for larger events, even then I'll probably do the honor system. But I always for larger events, just because I type really slow and it takes me a while to formulate my thoughts into words, I always do a turn order, even if it's just a really basic one, like, okay, you guys, type out an emote and then I'll answer your emotes. Okay, now you guys go. Like, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And for me, it helps alleviate a lot of that stress having the turn order if there's a large group, because then it's not me trying to play catch up the entire event.
See, I always prefer just to do honor system because I mean people might hate me, but I hate doing roles because it implies that characters are on the same level. Like in a in like a one-on-one fist fight, my character Vronzo, who is a thief but not like a great fighter, shouldn't have any chance against beating like a dude who's been in vigil his entire life and can break a man's fists or break a man's spine just by glaring at him. Like, I don't like the idea that I can beat him if my rolls are better than his. I always prefer honor system because I think it makes more sense. I don't think it should be even. I don't think it should be fair because it isn't in the game. It shouldn't be on the OC level.
The only
But
problem
what do
is
you?
some people abuse the honor system.
Oh God, yes, yeah, they really
Yeah,
do.
I honestly think the bet like we're getting at. Let's not get too far out of it.
Dragon
We'll
Ball Z.
probably have. Yeah, we'll probably have our own entire podcast on it another week. But like that's what I think in terms of just combat and things like that. If you do
Personally, I
it
don't
well, you
like
do it
stat
well.
sheets. All right, personally, I don't like stat sheets. If we do use rolls at times, and I don't like giving extra bonuses. I don't like having to juggle stats. That Champions of Krita thing, we were supposed to just give like a little tiny bonus, and really the most simplest of rolls possible. And that event went on for 15 plus hours over 2 days because of that roll system. No, it's like roll it. Whoever got higher, you win. Done. Ready to move on, because I've watched events where people tried to do rolls and stats and things like that, and the event should have lasted at no more 2 hours going on about it, and it has dragged on for more than 6, 7, 8, and it's like, holy crap! The things that would have been nice if we could have just done some really quick PvP flag or something like that against the environment.
Yeah, I just leave it up to the players. I'm like, here's a roll system. You can either do high rolls, that roll system, or you can freeform it. It's up to you guys. Just let me know who wins. And I kind of just leave it at that. And I feel like it just kind of takes the headache away from
The
the
DMs.
hosts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are good at it. They're really good at stat system roles, and they can manage to make it go really quick. And I envy them so hard, like Viagra hard. I envy them.
Hot. It's fucking hot. I think it works better in smaller, like closer knit groups that have been doing like stuff like this for a while. Because when you have big open groups and a lot of people are new to the group or a lot of people are just new to stat sheets in general, and then we've we had somebody made a stat like a roll system for us a while back, and basically the events like you said would take forever because everyone's like, okay, well I'm gonna shoot my gun at this guy and I gotta add this to it, and now I gotta add this. But what do I add plus that? And it would go on forever, and it took so much longer other than just going on like rolls.com and just seeing who just has the bigger flat number.
Yeah. I
And
miss Neverwinter Nights because they had an instant
And
roll.
like the sad thing is, I think I'd prefer stat sheets over honor system, to be entirely honest, because I think that takes out the fairness that's just in normal roles. Because this person's more equipped to fight a guy to fight with his fists than this guy, so he gets a plus however many, a plus however much whatever number. That makes more sense than just flat number versus flat number.
I
But
use the theory that a master can fuck up and a novice can have a good day.
I think that's silly, to be honest. But we'll have to disagree on that because we'll get into it on another podcast. Like I keep saying and coming back to.
well,
Do you have anything
just
to
like
add on
one.
that? Oh,
I have one last thing. Just like if it takes super long to calculate that kind of stuff, it actually breaks the immersion, and then you end up getting mentally and physically exhausted, and you just don't want to do it anymore.
yeah, it's. Then you're there at like 3 a.m. for an event that was supposed to end at 11 at night. We've all been there.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna move on unless anyone else has something to add. All right, I guess not. So we talked a lot about a lot about event planning. Let's just move on to the community because that was the other part of this. Straight up, do you guys think, and be blatantly honest with this, but blatantly honest without dropping names, do you think the community in Guild Wars 2, and you can even just say roleplay in general, community is become too sensitive to drama, IC, OC, just drama in
Yes.
general?
Yes.
Hot. Yes.
I have a
Yes.
particularly good story, but But I agree 100%. Way too sensitive.
I have a poll for this one, and I think the results reflect pretty well with the community, honestly. I know some people say no, but here's what the poll
Ooh.
came out with.
Those are the people that are
Um,
getting offended.
exactly. For yes, in terms of the community being too sensitive, yes got 45. No got 11. This is out of 56 votes. The
Jesus.
yes got 80%.
That of course that was just me restarting my router over and over again. But no, that's like just not too long ago I had an event where, or just not an event, a happenstance where, we happened to disagree with somebody, and it turned into a big movement trying to get me removed out of the guild I was running, and it was over something very little and something almost, and it got out of hand. It was crazy. I think people need to relax and like remember that we're all in this for fun, and no one's really in this to fuck each other over. You need to remember that when when people just do something ICly that you might not agree with on an OOC level.
Yeah, there's this really weird fallacy that springs up around events involving both the event itself and the host. It's almost entitled, is what I'm going to call it. It's nearly the same regarding guild leaders and officers at times, but that's something completely different. And this is not from the people running it; it's from the people who attend. Um, it's just because the hosts have volunteered our time and energy in putting all this stuff together, and they hope will be really fun. And we put out these invitations to other people and it seems to paint a target on us if things don't go 100% the way that other people wanted or hoped. Like people complain that an event didn't take them personally into account with the content when the hosts are really trying as hard as we can to prepare for the masses. Um, Honestly, if people kind of want a story or plot revolving around a very particular issue that they personally have, there is nothing stopping them from creating an event that does just that. Um, and yeah, just the whole server's getting super sensitive, super freaking sensitive because we know people are still cheesed about some very recent stuff. And honestly, I kind of think a lot of that OOC disclaimer question originates from that particular stuff in recent history of the server.
Not
Yeah,
all.
and I've noticed a huge increase because I've mentioned earlier that I've been with Guild Wars 2 since beta, and there used to be so many high quality events, even just like up until like 2 years ago. But in the recent, like the past year, the out of character drama on the server has just escalated exponentially to the point where like I find myself distancing, from certain groups or people or certain types of events. Even I'm just like I don't want to deal with it.
No, I think I think roleplay community in general is getting more like that because everybody, to use a wrestling term, everybody wants to see their character get over and just be, on top. I mean, some people don't, and I prefer to tend like roleplay more with the people who are in that category, who are fine with their character getting fucked over or this, but people who are where you disagree that an event should be run the way they want it to go, or their character shouldn't always win, or their character isn't entitled to this and they're not entitled to that, and people get really really butt mad over this, and like they take it personally and have almost like a vendetta against you. It it ruins it for everyone, because especially when you do it in a guild setting, then it turns into, okay, well, me versus you, and now the entire guild is watching and sees this, and
Yeah.
then that leads to a huge drama where like huge portions of the guild might leave, just up and leave, which going into an event might ruin an event or make it harder to a current plot that's going on. I know we had something like that happen in Pack 53rd. It wound up, honestly, after it happened, a lot of the drama that was happening actually stopped miraculously. I say in air quotes, but we had wound up having to drop a guild plot we were doing, um, because so many people involved in it had left that we were just like, well, we can't really do this anymore. It doesn't make any sense to do this anymore.
See, that's sad because it means something that was worked on very hard by other people who were invested inside of it couldn't be concluded. So it's like they spent that time and that effort, and then that just sort of died on them.
I
Yeah,
know. Well, go on.
yeah, it's pretty much how they said it. It's I don't know. They pretty much couldn't have said it any better. It's gone to the point where it's almost like you're avoiding specific groups, or almost like you're no longer able to hang out with specific people just because it's become such an ongoing drama like problem esque style where it's like the whole sensitivity and all that, or just in general the whole just drama being repeated over the years. It's gone to the point where uh like for me, or just I don't know if other people are on the same page, but it's just you no longer want to deal with it. You just want to, you came here to have fun, not deal with, as if it was high school or something.
Yeah. Which, kind of brings us around to another question because we need to start cutting down a little bit because we're running close to the timer. So, and I'm going to ask this question even though I disagree with it on a fundamental level. So, the RP community apparently tends to be much friendlier for women and minorities than other, aspects of gaming culture, which I disagree with. Do you consider this, important when you're interacting with a roleplay community or role playing in general?
I'm gonna jump in on that and say I find that hilariously slanted and almost completely untrue. I cannot think of anyone that I know who is a player of a minority, non Caucasoid race, let's go with that one, that comes out openly and says they are. I mean, just some of the questions being in civic that I've been hit with, like how do you play an Elonian, and telling someone like a human being has netted the most off the wall kinds of answers. And it's like no one asked this question of how do you play an Ascalonian? How do you play a Canthan? Because they figure they've already got it pretty solid with Kung Fu flicks and any
Anime.
European movie that's
Watched a
released.
lot of Jackie Chan movies, so I could probably do one of those pretty well.
Yeah, or
Oh my
anime.
god.
There you go. I mean, it's like, oh, how do you play an Elonian? And it's like you play them like a human being. If you're looking for something lore specific, let me know. But as a person, you just RP them as a person. And people who play Elonian characters, like I've gotten some of the skankiest whispers on Cal or Deborah, and other people who do play Elonians that are darker than almond milk have also gotten some skanky whispers. There used to be players who I know are black or African descent. They will not tell anything. They won't tell anyone what they are because they know the reactions that they're going to get. They just won't. People who are asexual, transgender, many of them will hide that because of the just kind of OOC whispered hate they get behind that kind of stuff. Or people will ask them the most just questions they should never ever ask anyone.
Yeah, like I play a female character, and I admit I have also gotten those like whispers and stuff, and I even gotten someone who gave me gold after one of those like really sleazy comments and approaches. And I mean, I took the gold, didn't respond back, but I mean, he
You,
offered gold, so
you
I
got
got
to
gold
do
out
it.
of it.
I might
Yeah.
roll a female character just to get more money.
That's just
Hey.
that's just it. It shouldn't be a thing. Female, just because you're playing a female character, you shouldn't expect to get like items or excuses or things like that just because you happen to have a character with boobs on it. I mean, one of our guild officers was playing a dark skinned Elonian male and running around, and she got hit with questions like, "Well, yeah, you want to come play my slave, or your character looks scary, or
Yo,
your
do
character
you have
looks
any
like."
names? Tell me who I have to hit up for a good time.
And yeah, that kind of shit. And it's like, what? And like somebody, like the weirdest one I ever got on Cal when I first made her was like, oh wow, my character loves the dark ones. And it's like, dude, what the fuck?
Well, I've never gotten
That's
any type of whisper like
that's
that.
hilarious. I need more of that.
I
Oh
barely
God.
get any whispers in general. So yeah, I don't have that issue at all. And like I've never, whether or not a game is friendly to women and minorities isn't honestly something that I really look in, because I'm my characters are a lot different than me. What I am in real life doesn't matter to me for what I'm looking for in role play. But if someone's hostile towards me or towards somebody else, like if they're hostile towards a friend of mine, um, whether it's they're in a guild or not, like they either get blocked or they get kicked out of the guild because while a lot of us enjoy IC drama, our OOC interactions with guilds or our circle of internet friends, they it should feel safe for us to play. And so like always abide by the golden rule that you should treat others as you would like to be treated. If you wouldn't like to get some of those whispers, then don't send them.
So I haven't seen anybody do anything like that, but I also play a white as milk human, and I am a white as milk human behind the computer. So like I don't see a lot of it. I thought this was a particularly silly question, for that reason. Um, but also I just think most people are assholes, and your best bet is to be like, okay, fuck yourself, and then just move on when it comes to stuff like that.
I knew a couple of
That's
players. The original creator of Civic, he was a black male. Um, he he got chased off the server essentially. He did. He was trying to bring up a couple of topics and points inside of the forums, and everyone jumped on his shit and called him a racist because he was trying to bring up a couple of his lamentations. Like, people complain about, well, this part of the game doesn't seem authentic, and that kind of the game doesn't seem authentic in comparison to a real life stuff, like feudal system and that kind of thing. He was trying to bring up commentary about Elonian lack, and he was relating it to real life and real world stuff. And people jumped on him and kept saying he was seeing racism where there wasn't any. He left. He went to TISO. He got chased off after a 6 or 7 page long forum debate.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it goes though. It's my opinion is the only opinion, and if you disagree with me, it's not free speech; it's hate speech. That's how it goes. That's how people do. But let's move on before this gets political. Unless anybody else has anything to add, because I think that's as much as we have in terms of questions about community stuff. And I'm good with that because I was about to. It was getting difficult not to drop names. So let's just. We only got two more questions, and I'll ask one of them now. Um, so when it comes to doing roleplay events and structuring roleplay events, is there any one that seems to succeed or fail more so than in particular? And is there anything like any hooks or any key, tactics to making an event that works better than others?
For me, it's not so much structure, but if the events are planned out well and have clear communication between the parties that are, hosting them, that seem to go the best. Events start falling apart when people don't really know what's going on, especially if you have people helping out as DMs. And especially if there's more than one, there's nothing like being mid-event and having one of your DMs not know anything about what's going on or how to go about doing it, and you're just like, and that's when you start winging it.
That's funny. So
Mm,
I've been there.
the most successful ones seem to be social charity dynamic based events, like, oh, we're going to go here and we're going to fight against the mechanical thing. Those seem to be fairly high success events. Prairie events, festivals, caravans, that kind of thing. Trying to pull off a server wide anything isn't a high risk of fail, but it's a higher risk of dissonance. What I mean by that is that there's going to be a vocal minority who, even when told they don't have to participate, will stress feeling pressured to, and then that'll create the divergent timelines and seal it for the community. Because I, there's people who actually ignore the living story. They just refuse to believe in Scarlet. That's an RP base split right there. So you have that happening with events all over, and it's just like nobody is sharing the same timeline. Um,
Oh, don't tell me that's real.
that is real. It is
Fuck.
super real.
Those people should fuck off. God damn it, that sounds terrible.
As for your hooks, they can vary. Trying to find a subject that has mass appeal is really not easy. We use charities for nobles and military service from our martial minded. Not really seeing a plot or event that called for problem solving do very well because, as you said, everybody wants to get a star.
Omega, I haven't heard your voice in a while.
Oh,
Did you
sorry,
die?
a little bit. If you want another poll about it, we had a poll of what types of events you enjoy, which could help for people who wish to host an event but they're not really sure on what kind. Out of 172 votes, there's 5 different options. Action, as in spar, races, and like puzzles, got 45 votes. The social gatherings like theater nights or like let's say like some musical night or something, that got 42. And then noble slash martial, kind of like the balls and like just like the house gatherings and stuff like that, got 19. Merchants and markets got 36. And criminal interference like bombs, fires, and just general like criminal activity got 30. And I feel like it's kind of spread out evenly over the 3 of like criminal interference, social gathering, and actions. It seems that people kind of just want more variety, because until like recently we've been getting a lot more noble-esque events and stuff like that, and we haven't really been getting any action or criminal. And I think for like the criminal aspect, they want something more of something they can interact with, not something you stand there and you see it unfold. They want to be able to attack back, or maybe the criminal characters want to be able to step up and do something.
Word. These awkward silences are killing me.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of that, I honestly have nothing to add to that because I think everyone's made good points, and also I don't do events. Uh, I mean, if I had to stretch, I'd say what Val does. Whatever Val says is what I go with because she does my events for me, and they usually go pretty well. All right, so we got one more question, and it's probably the most important one in terms of this. And I'll probably prong it off into 2 questions. First off, do you have any suggestions to anyone new to making events or planning events? I want to hear suggestions, and I want to hear good ones. Omega, you start.
Plan them. Well, post the event itself maybe a week or 2 ahead of time. The longer, the better, just because people get a chance to organize their time, and maybe they have an event in their guild, and possibly they can reschedule it over yours, so they can actually be able to make it. Another huge thing is networking. Just try and reach out to people, try and connect to the other guilds, tell them, hey, I'm hosting this event, I'd love to have you there. Like that, the candlelight vigil for the pact, I basically tried reaching out to all the military orders, like Seraph, everyone, especially the pact guilds, and I was like, hey, I'm having this, I would love for you guys to come. I would, if you guys can do speeches, that'd be great.
Try to get as organized as possible. Take screenshots of the area and use that inside of your events because it can help people who may not have an idea of where to go, where to stand, where it's actually happening. Be clear inside of the post for the events that you're making. Don't be afraid to try an event that hasn't taken place. Um, Also, grow a thick skin. As we've said before, you're going to get people who are going to complain about it, who didn't like it, who didn't want to do it, or something like that. And yet, for some reason, they still showed the hell up. And so, yeah, just basically take deep breaths, get some tea, float through, my friends, float through. But don't be afraid.
I have lots of advice to give. And I also agree with Deborah and Omega too. Like, the more notice you can give, the better. While spontaneous events are fun, they're usually better if they're smaller spontaneous events. Um, and don't expect a huge turnout if you do something like that. Um, for hosts, I mean, if you're gonna host an event, make a template ahead of time, and outline your events to help you stay on track, because it's really easy to go overboard really fast. And so by looking back to your main goal will help you keep yourself in check, and make sure you don't like just ruffle stomp over established lore by trying to make the most epic thing ever. A good event is one that's like well written and thought out. It doesn't have to be some extravagant ball or an epic battle. Sometimes the simple events are the most enjoyable. Like with the poll, some people just want simple market events, something to, address everyday life. Uh, and be flexible, but also know your limits. Start off with small events and work your way up. If you're not comfortable running large scale events, then keep that in mind when you're coming up with ideas for an event. Don't plan an epic large scale battle if you only want 5 people to show up. Try not to rush an event or plot, especially if it's going to be a multi event plot. It's easy to become super eager to tell your story, but keep in mind the schedules of the people that you want involved. And if you plan on it being a fast paced event, then make sure you include that in your event description so people can prepare for it. If something unexpectedly, horrible goes wrong, don't give up mid event. Go on with the show. If you have to end the event early, make an icy transition for it, and try to avoid abrupt disruptions. And always, always, always have a backup plan because life happens. There's been numerous events to where I've gone to and I've had to pull out early because of the little one crying or whatever else, because he's in the teething stage right now, so that's so fun. If somebody ruins your event, talk to them privately and civilly about it like an adult. The moment you start throwing insults and cuss words, you kind of lose your validity and look like a toddler throwing a tantrum.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Fully agree with that one.
Yeah. But also keep in mind you can't please everybody, so don't let setbacks or constructive criticism discourage you from hosting future events, and learn from those mistakes. Take notes during your event, take a step back and see how you can do better next time. Experience all the different events that are out there and see what works for you and what doesn't. If you're asked to be a DM for an event, don't ever be afraid to ask the host questions or to help you go over stuff before the event. You're as a very crucial part of the event as much as the host is, and so you knowing what you're doing is going to help make the event go smoothly and be a success. And take your role seriously, please. The host wouldn't have asked you to be a DM if they didn't trust you and your capabilities. And make sure you let the host know if you're uncomfortable with any part of the event, whether it's the content or the size of the crowd or whatever else.
Don't be afraid to also take cues from some of the players, because I swear sometimes the little inspirations that the participants make up can be great adjustments for the current story going on.
That's fucking fair. That's a fair point. Well, my advice, which is the advice anyone should follow, make Val do your events. Get Val to do all your stuff for you. Our Pack 53rd, it's, I helped fund it. We've been around for, I think, going on 2 years now. And Val's done all my, Val's done all, I think, maybe less than a year. Val's been doing my events for me forever, and I'm doing fine. So get Val to do your events.
I
2016.
don't mind.
Build a wall.
I actually don't mind giving feedback. We have a lot of people in the guild that are stepping into the event creation for like the first time, and I really don't mind giving input, looking over the outline, and the plot that I'm writing right now. I was discussing it with a couple of my officers, and I'm like, okay, let's do this and this and this. And then, like, we got to one part, we're like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. And then we're like, wait, why? Why are we doing this? It's a pact event, so why is the pact being involved in this? So even when you've run events, for years and years and years, outlines still help because they can still help you catch mistakes.
They are amazing, yes. Google Documents is your friend for easy sharing.
Yes.
Notepad++ is also good for just personal, quick save stuff.
I keep a pen and piece of paper by my desk just so I can write it down quickly, and so he's right there.
And then send it over mail.
I have a desk calendar for that.
Well, I was gonna ask. My last question was going to be any like advice towards mingling with the community, but we kind of hit on a lot of that already. and we've
Step
hit
out
on
of
that in
your
other
box.
podcasts. Yeah, basically, don't be a dick. Don't feel entitled, and build a wall. It's basically all the advice I can give you.
Mingle.
Make role play great again. All
Yes,
right.
please.
Anybody have anything else to add before we cut it for the week? I guess not. All right. Join us. That's the podcast. Deborah, Val, thanks for joining us. Omega, thanks for not being as good of a co-host as Pug Monkey. And tune in next week where our topic is my left testicle. See you then.
Fuck you.